I think it's time to start getting into hell. Here we go.
So, as my one gaming group finally get into Avernus, that also means that I can now finally start to get to show you some of the expansion of my Avernus build. You can see a little bit of it here just highlighted. But today, I'm just taking a slight detour from that. In one of the other gaming groups I run, there is a character, well, let's say a player who has a character who is being subject to the slow possession by a demonic sword. And as a player, he's young and he's quite new to D&D. His introduction to D&D was through a gaming group, and but his gaming background is actually heavily steeped in the lore of Warhammer, particularly the chaos element. So with this idea of the sword and with the Warhammer element, I felt I wanted to give him something that sort of gave him a little bit of a crossover maybe, but also meant that I would start to be able to resurrect my own ancient chaos army from way back a couple of decades ago and bring it up to date and play once again, well, as was Warhammer Fantasy for in my day, Age of Sigmar in this day. And with that in mind, what I wanted to create was just a centerpiece for the Chaos Army on the table. And so I came up with this Chaos Seal. I'm sure those of you with a Warhammer background will recognise where that's come from. And I want to show you today how I made this. I will be bringing this and all the stuff that goes with it to you very, very soon. But right now, let's get on with the Chaos Seal. Let's do this. So I already pretty much knew what I wanted in terms of the symbol, so I just had a bit of a Google search and found something that was a reasonable bit of inspiration. And I drew that out. A shout out to the artist who did the symbol. I'm not sure who you are. I hope you are happy with what I did using your piece of art as the inspiration. But yeah, so usual fare with the EVA, draw it all out, and then obviously you've got to cut it out. Now in this instance there was quite a lot of cutting and some quite intricate cutting, so I didn't really want to be using a knife for this, so I got out my trusty bandsaw, which is fantastic on EVA. Although I have been looking to upgrade this, more on that at a future point. But yeah, so took a short time to cut out the basic silhouette, but the internal cutouts I did do with a knife. I could have done them with the bandsaw, but I'd have to cut through from the outside to the inside, and with so many sections to cut out, what I didn't want to do was end up with a piece that was in a few parts that I'd got to kind of glue back together. So I just went in with the knife, a good sharp knife. You saw me there using the sharpener. I highly recommend one of those. It significantly extends the lifespan of your blades and cost a few pounds. So for the price of one set of blades, you can extend the lifespan of a pack 100-fold. So yeah, this was fairly grueling work, tugging the pieces out, but what I was really keen to get was very ragged edges. I wanted to make sure that those edges were already quite distressed. Now with that task done, it was time to continue with the knife, but now I wanted to create these deep gouges where the intention is to have this immense piece of hell-forged iron look like it's been forged as separate parts that have then been bound together with chains. And so now what I needed to do was go around with the knife, cutting out the sliver of EVA to represent where those segments join together. And here it's just a case of digging into the foam a few millimeters at an angle, and then the opposing angle. The thing to remember here is to tear the EVA foam out. It will give you a far better texture than just the knife cut alone. So you don't want to make the knife cut do all of the work. You want some of the EVA still remaining attached so that you get that texture when you tear out the sliver. And this is a great technique for cracks in stone, or as it is here in this piece of hammered, rusted, ancient iron. And then of course I need the holes through which the chains will pass to bind all these apparently separate pieces together. And that was just done with the cordless drill, and I placed a piece of foam underneath where I was drilling through so I didn't damage my cutting mat any further. And yeah, just go around and make the holes where needed. Okay, so the next bit on this is a Dremel, and anytime you are grinding or sanding EVA foam, just the same as if you're overheating it, one of these is a necessity: respirator, because that dust will cling to your skin like it's glued to it. So just imagine what it will do down there on the inside. So anyway, the plan with the Dremel is to give me a really good sort of corroded texture. I want a texture before I paint it. So yeah, just lots of sort of, and if you look here, I have this stone bit, this shape bit, for any sort of rounded tip will do. Sometimes I think it's a bit of guesswork with these tips as to what you actually use them for. Anyway, let's crack on with that, because there's a fair bit to do over this. If you've been around with me for a while now, you know what my basic undercoat process is. It's PVA to seal and harden off the foam itself. Then this was given a black undercoat with Halford's primer, and then it was given a red primer as well, metal primer, which has a deep rusty colour already. And then, as you can see here, I'm going over the whole thing with a black wash, just a straight up acrylic paint, which I then dry. So I was up against a bit of a time constraint, so I had to start drying it with a hot air gun. For the Avernus expansion build that I'm working on, I knew I was going to be needing a lot of chain, so I've got this jeweler's chain. I've just ordered a reel off Amazon. It was a few pounds, it wasn't very dear. So I cut off lengths, which I then just give a good rubbing over with the sandpaper, just to put a bit of a tooth on there, ready for when I start to age and distress the chains. They're a bit too shiny as they are. And then I just start planning out where the chains are going to pass through all of those holes, and once I've got them into position, I can just start working with the super glue to just hold it in place. and it looks as if it's passing through on the underside. So before moving into the main paint of the rust, I give the chains a little bit of a black wash, which bonds reasonably well because of the sanding that they had, and this will just help to sit them into the overall piece more effectively and make them look a part of the age that the piece is meant to have. And you can see here as well, I put a little bit of extra contrast into those edges between the segments. So the colours I've chosen are cad red, dark Sazine purple, and a little burnt sienna. Now I've never really painted rust effect onto any kind of terrain or mini before, so this is fairly new territory for me. So yeah, I know I want deeper, warm tones to start with, and then come up to the brighter, more vibrant tones at a later stage. So I'm just playing with those three pigments to get something that looks in the range of temperature that I want. I know I want it to be a little more vibrant than the underlying reds and darks. But I don't want it to be so vibrant as to be really high contrast. That's the next step. And that is done with cad orange, pretty much as it is. I did work into the colour that I'd already mixed previously, so it wasn't pure bright orange, and then just worked around the piece, just picking out points here and there. I didn't really put any forethought into it. I just focused on edges and areas and just really stippled the brush. And I added water to the pigment once it was down on the terrain piece, so it just helped to make that brighter pigment flow a little into the crevices and nooks and crannies of the overall piece. And then I finally finished off with just a pure orange, which I just hit here and there just to put some real bright spots in. And that's pretty much the paint job.